This launch was a failure to me, not to the people who signed up and said, hell yes, not to what it looked like from the exterior, because I had anyone sign up coming in. I still had a wonderful cash month, but I had this moment where I was like, am I doing enough? I had that moment where I was like, maybe I'm not as good as I think that I am. Being limitless is knowing your success and your growth are built on a radical belief in yourself. Limitless is honoring your purpose, your health, and impact above all else. Limitless is never playing small, because the more alive you feel in your life, the more growth and success you attract. Hi, my name is Jamie Ratermann, and I am a holistic business coach, meaning I am just as invested in growing your health as I am in growing your wealth. With 11 plus years in brand and social media marketing, I help rebellious entrepreneurs master marketing, embody leadership, and say fuck it to the hustle. This show is here to encourage you to become more radically aware of your self-imposed limits, to break free of your shoulds, and to expand your brand into a movement led by you. Hello, lovelies. Welcome to episode 39 of the Limitless Podcast. I am so excited to chat with you. How was everyone's Thanksgiving? How was everyone's Black Friday, Cyber Monday? How did it all feel? I feel like we're fully in the holiday swing, which means if you haven't made your gift list yet, it is something to start now for sure. But also, I think that this can also be the time of year that we end up looking back on how we did for the year. We're already starting to percolate on what we want for the following year, of course. But I really want you to take a look and think about maybe a gift that you don't always think of. And today's episode is exactly that. So today's episode, we're going to be digging into a gift that is the best real data for growing your business to new heights, to allow you to become that person you have always wanted to be, and to simply approach each day with a little more limitless opportunity. That gift is failure. Now, if that me just saying that sent chills up your spine, I want you to keep listening to this episode. Failure really isn't the problem per se. It's our fear of failure. Like actually acknowledging how much we put meaning and just heaviness around the worry of failing can be such a big part of it. But I want to help you adjust and shift your mindset a little bit about why the more we fail, the better we become, the more we can make big moves in our lives, in our business, whatever it can feel like. But I'm going to ask you today to start to think about any way that you failed this year, so that we can just take the weight off of that word, off of what that can feel like. So if I'm asking you to lean into your failures, it's only fair for me to share one of mine. So I think, you all hear me talking about business, how to grow your business. One of my failures was my round 3 launch of Marketing Mastery. I clearly am obsessed with this program. I clearly love this offer. I talk about it all the time with even you now, and knowing that there's something to be shared about this experience. But in January of this year, I had the goal going like, okay, this is my 3rd round of this program. I know that I have been able to create clout amongst my community. I know that I could turn this launch Marketing Mastery into a $30,000 month for me. I had the opportunity to be able to build that up, being able to hit these numbers that I had in mind. Did all the master classes. I posted up all of the posts that I needed. I did outreach. I did every little bit. And by all means, before I talk about this as a failure, the people who did come into this program made me so happy. But I was at a deficit against my goal. My goal was 12 people in the room, and I came into that launch with 4. Now, for me, this failure is me feeling like I could really control how a launch went. It was my last launch where I really let adrenaline push me, but it doesn't mean that I didn't have to really self-correct myself whenever I had this low energy around starting the program, being able to go like, oh, this is only 4 people. And I have that a lot with clients, which is something that is important that I have experienced. But one really big note that I want to get into this is that this launch was a failure to me, not to the people who signed up and said, hell yes. not to what it looks like from the exterior, because I had anyone sign up coming in. I still had a wonderful cash month, but I had this moment where I was like, am I doing enough? I had that moment where I was like, maybe I'm not as good as I think that I am. And failure really made me go like, am I in the right place? So I know these are things that come up for each and every one of you. And I'll continue to share through this experience of why sometimes at this moment, like even as I was sharing that failure, going like, I'm better now because of it. It's hard for me to see it that way. And that's exactly why I want you to see it that way. See your failures as these gifts instead. So what I can tell you is, because of that launch and because of even other launches and like paying attention to how I feel, that I have now changed anything in my programs to make sure that the energy behind the launch is there, to really understand that, really understand what you can control whenever you are selling, and to be able to give yourself the time and space to lean in to why you love an offer. All of that is part of my own failure and how it now helps my clients have their best launches yet. So I think that's a big part to get into. So we'll talk about how I moved through that failure, and I want you to join me along with this. So I just shared a little bit of a part of myself here, but I'm going to help you see failure as a gift, as well as this really great differentiator to success. Like even as I share that what happened in that round, all of my following launches happened a little differently, right? So before I dive into why failure is a gift, let's take a quick pause. So I just shared a part of me. I want you to take a moment to think about when you failed. What sticks out in your mind of what is considered a failure for you? It can be a small failure. Maybe you burnt your eggs this morning, or it can be a bigger one. Like nobody bought a product of yours. Envision who you were then. So if this morning you were a bit of a space case and you burnt your eggs, that's okay. But like, think about what was going on then. And then think about who you are now. Keep these things in mind as I walk through why failure is such a gift, because I want to help you start to just remodel how you might be feeling about it, and we can work through it specifically. So the gift of failure gives you, first and foremost, experience. So we learn through failure. We learn through activation. We learn through jumping headfirst into the goals, into the things that we want to do in our businesses, in our lives for that matter. So really understanding, if you feel like you're at a standstill, that you are worried and sitting in uncertainty around what you want to do next, that fear of failure is only going to keep you there. So we gain knowledge, expertise, success through jumping all the way in. I've literally called myself kind of like a cannonball type of person. I cannonball into everything I want to try. If I'm going to decide I want to do better video content, I'm going to cannonball into it. If I just, when I decided that I wanted to learn how to make scones, I made every damn kind of scone you could think of. And I literally had to hand it off to friends because it was like I was making biscuits and scones. I'm the kind of person that I want to jump fully in, because I know that that's the way I'm going to figure things out. Because failure really, in this sense, is a practice of activating what you want and coming into something with a beginner's mindset, knowing that the more that we fall, the more we learn. It's so unrealistic to think that every time we are going, like we're going to know exactly how to be successful right off the bat. So experience here is me encouraging you to get off of the plateau and jumping fully in, because you're going to be better off. But of course, you're going to be able to help your clients, the people around you, better by activating that side of you. So the beginner's mindset is a really important role here. So thinking about how can you come into anything when you're trying something brand new with endless curiosity and play. So the easiest one to do is when we're talking about this metaphor is thinking about when you learned how to ride a bike. You looked at that bike, you were really excited about it, you wanted to do it, and you jumped on the thing, right? You had the support that you needed. You played with how fast the pedals needed to move. You learned how what it took to turn on the brakes. You also learned what you needed to do when you fell and you skinned your knee. You also learned that some other kids can ride faster than you, and that you can learn from them. But being able to know that, like, when you rode that bike, you weren't sitting there saying, wow, I should have figured that out right away. Wow, I can't believe that I skinned my knee. This must mean that I'm not supposed to ride bikes ever again in my life. The beginner's mindset is really just approaching life the way you did when you were a kid, with curiosity, with excitement, with trying to figure out how you can put your own spin on things. So if you imagine yourself this way, and understanding that the more you approach and learn from failure, of course, this is going to allow you just to be able to relate to and be able to share with more power. Imagine if everything was ever handed to you. This is exactly why we love Reg's Richest Stories. When someone talks to us about how they learned something, they're like, oh, it's always been easy for me. Versus someone who goes, yeah, this didn't work, and this didn't work, and that didn't work either. But this is why I know this works best for me. Or being able to just witness that every decision you've made in your life has led you to where you are now. The bad decisions, the good decisions, the ones that made you go like, I can't believe I did that, to the ones that are like, yeah, I felt well informed to do something, to take that risk. Experience is absolutely one of the biggest gifts when it comes to failure. The next gift that failure provides is connection. So while it's important to always lean into sharing what you want for others and how you can envision that, we really do focus and connect with each other over difficulty. It's something about feeling really seen and heard when someone goes, oh, I feel that way too, or oh, me too. I've been there before. So most of us walk through this world, unfortunately, keeping things internal, keeping things to ourselves, thinking that it's just our problem. Flashback to me talking about my launch, right? Like, and going like, I'm just not doing enough. It must be something about me. And being able to take a step back and really look around and realize that my clients were going through the same thing, that my accountability buddies were going through the same thing. And being able to really realize that the launch can feel like such a hard thing. So instead of keeping this stuff to myself, instead of deciding like, oh, I'm the only one that has to hold this heavy weight, I can share that story instead. So the moment when someone starts to share that story that we can relate to, a huge weight is lifted off of our shoulders, and theirs for that matter. Like, I really want to take a moment to think about how it feels when someone shares how they struggle with the same thing you do. Like, let's say like you're trying to learn to meditate, and everyone in the room is like, oh, I love meditation, it's so amazing, I can do it all day. And then there's the one person that goes, I fucking suck at it. Like, I can't even get started on it. How many other of those people that just say they loved it were like, yeah, actually, you know what, it was hard for me too. They're ready to jump in and connect with you there. So failure can be a way to really connect with each other over what it really means to be human, what it really means to have really high ups and low downs, and really realize that it's hard to change our behavior, but we can do it. But it's that wonderful connection piece that's, I think, is really important. So failure allows you to connect, and I encourages you to get vulnerable, because again, we're all human. We connect through people's life stories and trust someone based on how much life they've experienced. And I can tell you, life is ups and downs. So being able to really witness, the more we can share those things, the more likely you're going to connect with your community, the more likely things are going to work out a little better for you. The next one is a big one, and I think I could spend an entire episode on this if I wanted to. But the other gift that failure really can give to you is compassion. We all are in a state of not giving compassion to ourselves. So we like in general, I can talk about empathy, compassion for others, but our inner critic, even too, I feel like we all have an inner drill sergeant that just like loves to tear us apart. And it is absolutely like I've like taken it as an identity of myself when I'm coaching a client, when they're sitting there tearing themselves apart and I'm going, all right, let me give you a different voice because she's loud. Let me make sure that you know how freaking amazing you are. But this is what it is. We make failure mean something about us. We decide that failure means that we're not enough. That failure means that someone else is better. Failure means that nobody likes us. Failure means that we just can't figure it out. But this is what grinds my gears. Once you can accept that failure is a part of life and that it benefits you, you're no longer going to sit on the sidelines. This is the number one thing that prevents us from really diving in, because we think that we have to kind of wear our failures like on our body, like tattoos in some way. Like one time I fell off my bike, the other time I lost a whole bunch of money, another time I like got broken up with. We hold these failures as something that means something about us. And the only way to release that is to really come in it with compassion and a little bit of realism here. Realistically, you are who you are because of those failures. Like if like just using breakup as an example here, all of your past failed relationships, or if we keep it to business, all of your past failed sales pitches allows you to be the person you are now. And if you decided just to tear yourself apart when you bungled something up, when you made a mistake, you would have stayed in that place, but you're now here. So being able to show yourself the same kind of compassion that you show for others towards yourself, especially when you fail, whatever you want to call it here, the better you're going to be. So one thing I want you to realize, this is how you know that you may not be coming into it with compassion, is identity statements. So if you say, I'm just not a good tech person, or I'm just no good at launches, or I'm just no good at those type of video, or I always burn that. So you are making identity statements about who you are, when it's really, I've had some trouble with launching in the past, or I have a little bit of a block around pitching my business. So being able to really realize if you are just deciding that you're not good at something, you're not giving yourself compassion. So starting there. So this is where we just really wrap up the bullshit around what it means to fail. So let's say nobody signed up for your launch. You left a typo in your email subject line. You spilled coffee on your brand new shirt. If there's more than one time that I have literally ruined a white shirt. I can't keep a crisp white shirt. I can tell you that much. Or let's say your website just isn't working. Shit happens. Yeah. I have to, of course I'm going to say this in an episode around failure. Shit happens. It's your responsibility when it comes to these things happening to you to realize I'm human. I'm allowed to show myself care, to bring myself back to feeling good. And that this means not a damn thing about me. So start thinking about your relationship with yourself whenever you fail. Whenever something just doesn't work out, how do you pick yourself back up? And how do you talk to yourself in the process? This last gift that comes with failure is resilience. So resilience is a core value within my business. It's something I love to talk about a lot, but this is ultimately what creates a successful entrepreneur. It's somebody who not only accepts failure, but invites it, surrenders to it, sees that it's going to come and that they get to learn from it. So I want to encourage you to think about how like in your life is an upward climb. So for everyone who's watching this on YouTube, you'll be able to see this a little bit better. But the idea is that whenever you're climbing in life, everyone does this like, straight up all the way up, and they think this is exactly how we get to where we need to go. When in reality, we have a peak, we go down into the valley, we have a plateau, we come back up, we have all of these things. But the idea is that we don't have a flat surface. Like we want to be able to, I'll come down a little bit, but from there I'm able to make this other peak, move my way up to this next area. So if you find yourself in general on a plateau often, or sitting in valleys of failure often, you may be falling victim to this lack of resilience. So we talked about this already in the previous 3 things that I said. Failure is experience. Failure is a way to connect. Failure is a way for compassion. If you aren't finding yourself doing any of those, you're likely going to just kind of sit stuck. So failure is your invitation to find resilience, to find grit, to dust yourself off, pick yourself back up, and continue. So here's what happens when you build your life and accept and surrender failure within that. Failure can make you laugh. So one thing, whenever tech things don't work, now I am not perfect at this, but for instance, when an IG live just absolutely isn't working for me, or links aren't working in an email, or just in general today, in particular, my Wi-Fi went out for a while, I laugh like, oh my gosh, I'm getting so frustrated by something that 20 years ago we never worried about. Like 20 years, trying to explain to someone who lived in the 1950s that you like got so pissed that technology wasn't working for you, they'd be like, what's wrong with this person? But this is where, like, if I'm like, every time I'm going to feel frustrated, I'm going to just laugh, because that's going to allow me to get back into it. So you can catch yourself when you're making it mean something about you, and you can instead focus on surrounding yourself with habits, an environment, and even like a life that helps you get back up each day. So it's accepting that you're going to fail. It's also accepting that failure is a springboard to your next success. So failures are simply lessons. The more lessons you've learned in your life, the more success you attract. I want to say it again. The more lessons you learned in life through failure, the more success you attract. So let's go back to that failure you thought of at the beginning of this. Let's say you burnt those eggs, right? As the example. What did you learn? Maybe the next time you keep your pan low. Maybe you stay near them the next time and be present in your kitchen. Or you had a failed launch like I shared about mine. So what could you do better next time? Is it time for support so you can show up more, to sell with a little more confidence, and to stop feeling like it has to be something you have to figure out? So for me, that just bringing that in is that my launches are a little longer. I make sure my content brings in leads. I make sure that I'm really freaking excited about an offer. And I also know that the more I can share that, I've had a failed launch before, allows me to connect with others who may not have had a good launches either. So thinking about how that failure has created who you are now. So I hope if you listen to today's episode, you look back on this year and see all that you did as an absolute gift. The highs, the lows, all of it is something you're going to end up building on. So even if you didn't do what you said you would do in 2022, how can you even learn from that? How can you make sure that you're not on the sidelines anymore in 2023? If there's anything I hope Limitless teaches you, is I hope that I encourage you to be a cannonball in the life that you want. AKA you jump fully in to what you want to happen for yourself. Through these practices that I share, I hope I can help you make that happen. But really embracing failure and knowing that it's temporary is a big deal. Celebrating success and being grateful for what got you there is also a big deal. So please screenshot this episode, share what you've learned most from what I shared today, or for my courageous listeners, share how you failed and see how well that can help you connect with others.